Uzma, thanks very much indeed. And President, it's a great pleasure to be able to join you and colleagues from around the world on this call. My thanks as ever to Fahim for his organisational skills and discipline in keeping us well focused on this issue. I think the recent conflagration between India and China has just underlined for many of us the risks which are at play here. In the narrative in the UK about the urgency to resolve this, we often hear that we must get this on a track to peace because this is a conflict between two nuclear powers. And people will have heard me say many times before, this is not a risk of conflict between two nuclear powers, it's a risk of conflict between three nuclear powers. And I think the conflict with China has just underlined that. The most important geopolitical set of changes which are coming in the next 20 years is the creation of One Belt, One Road, as China begins to help build an economic infrastructure to its west. And that just escalates the risks dramatically. And so the world has a shared interest in making sure that there is a path to peace. And we know that there is no path to peace unless there is a path to justice. And there is no path to justice unless there is justice for the people of Kashmir and the implementation of the UN Security Council resolutions that were agreed all of those years ago. Now, there have been something like 250 dangerous armed conflicts around the world since World War II. About 150 of them were brought to a conclusion through negotiation. The most significant, though, have never been resolved with a simple, old-fashioned bilateral negotiation between the powers at stake. That is not how we brought peace to Northern Ireland in our own country. We relied on a third party, Senator George Mitchell, who came in from the United States to help bring two opposing sides to their senses. That is not how we brought peace to the former Yugoslavia. We brought in Richard Holbrooke from the United States in order to broker peace in the former Yugoslavia. That's not actually how we made the big breakthroughs in the Middle East. Actually, the Camp David Accords overseen by President Carter were absolutely essential in bringing Egypt and Israel to the negotiating table for the first time. I think it is therefore pretty fanciful to pretend that India and Pakistan will be able to resolve this injustice peacefully. I have always thought that it is important for us to say that human rights is always an international issue, and therefore the United Nations and international peacekeeping mechanisms should always be deployed in the first instance. But I think we have to recognize that there will need to be outside parties that come in to help us broker peace, because what most of us see happening in India is a sectarian populism which is destroying the founding vision of India and leading to a world that is more and more dangerous. And we saw that most graphically with the deaths of the Indian soldiers recently in the conflict with China. So I'm just very grateful that you've been able to bring this debate to us today in order to keep the minds of British parliamentarians focused on this. I also speak, I suppose, as chair of the Global Parliamentary Network on the World Bank and the IMF. And one of our partners, the International Parliamentary Union, recently discussed with us on a call how around the world COVID is being used by autocratic regimes to silence debate and democracy. That is not how we recover from a crisis. So India is not alone in using this current crisis to create a fog of uncertainty in which further human rights abuses are perpetuated. So, you know, we continue, I think, to need to press in our own parliament for a much more assertive posture from the UK government towards Mr. Modi. And we have got to expose the use of COVID as a way of creating that fog to disguise human rights abuses. But my own view, sometimes it's not popular in my own party when I say this, but my own view is that we need to drop the pretense that this issue is going to be solved bilaterally. Yes, we have to work harder to get human rights in the area back into the spotlight. Our ministers do agree, they do admit that human rights are always an international issue. But over and above that, I think there has to be a group of us that continues to use the arena of Parliament to press for sensible third-party involvement in trying to broker peace. So, Uzma, let me stop with let me stop there in order to make sure that others have got plenty of time to contribute.